Just let our audience build up here for a sec. You ever use this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, we use it in Austin.
Nice. It's fun. I enjoy it. Building an audience. Got 3 people joining us. Now it's growing. All right. Well, what's going on, Reign fans? Joey Z here with you, joined alongside with the voice of the San Antonio Rampage and Dan Weiss, and we're here to give a kind of a fun game preview to tonight's contest between the Ontario Reign and San Antonio Rampage. Certainly, it's the first time in a long time these two teams have got together. You got to go all the way back to the beginning of November, and that was out in Ontario last time the Reign were here. We're right around Halloween time, so certainly it's been a while, but all in all, Ontario coming in with a 3-game winning streak, #1 team in the Pacific Division. San Antonio, 7th place, but also on a 3-game winning streak as well. And Dan, let's go ahead and kind of preview this Rampage group. Certainly both teams looking forward to the All-Star break and taking some time off here, but you got to go through 2 games to get there. But for San Antonio, it seems like, up and down in the standings, up and down in terms of the win column, but you seem to be playing pretty good hockey here going into the break.
Yeah, the last 3 games have certainly been, I think, a good confidence booster for this group. It's been an odd season when you talk about injuries, which has really been the storyline for the Rampage. Over 200 man games lost due to injury before the All-Star break is kind of unheard of. And losing, a couple of top 6 guys who, ironically enough, both got injured the last time the Rampage and Reign played. And, credit to the guys that they've been able to kind of keep their head above water and stay, right around the 500 mark. But haven't been able to get above 500, and that's really been the big thing. So it's a big weekend for them, I think, going into the All-Star break. I think if, they can get above 500, then, you go in with a little bit of confidence, and you kind of think that you might have something, headed into what's typically been, a good part of the season for the Rampage in the past, which is the rodeo road trip. The team's gone for the entire month of February, and that's because literally the rodeo kicks everybody out here at the AT&T Center.
When I saw that all over the billboards in downtown San Antonio, pretty much from the start of February all the way to the end of the month. And actually, tonight is game number 8 of a 10-game homestand, so it seems like the building's trying to make it up a little bit, giving you so many home dates before going on the road for 9 straight. But so far in this homestand, 3-2-2-0. But you got some big wins here recently against the Rockford Ice Hogs, a team out of the Central Division that's still trying to find their stride as well. I mean, how do you keep the momentum moving forward, considering that you've had a ever-changing lineup here in these past couple of weeks?
Well, the lineup's been pretty consistent, actually, for the last couple of games, and I think that's the key right there. In fact, now you've got healthy guys that are being pushed out of the lineup that are playing good hockey. For example, Gary Nunn's not going to play tonight, and he scored one of the goals the other game against Rockford. So I think that internal competition is really key to your team. Knowing you guys who only have 12 healthy forwards right now, you don't have that internal competition. So your guys know that they're always going into the lineup every single night. So for us, that internal competition is good. But I think as well for the Rampage, the victories against Rockford and Manitoba were key, but San Antonio, they've really got to start getting some wins against the division. The divisional record has been below 500, and based on how the playoff structure is set up with being the top 4 in the division, if you don't make hay against your own division, especially how good the top 4 in the Pacific's been playing this year, it's really hard to, put yourself back into the conversation.
Joey Z with the Reign, talking with Dan Weiss of the San Antonio Rampage. Here is the Ontario Reign out on the ice right now, as you can see, from morning skate here at AT&T Center in San Antonio. Just previewing tonight's contest. And for the Reign overall, game number... what game number? I just wrote it down. Game number 3 of 6 against the Rampage here so far this season. We don't get to see them a whole lot, so easily you kind of lose track. But again, the last time they got together was in early November and late October, so it's been a little while. Certainly the Reign battling all the teams throughout California. And for the Rampage, those pesky Texas Stars are among the top competitors for you and your schedule. But now rolling into tonight's contest, the news came out yesterday that you get your big goaltender back in Spencer Martin. Also for Jim O'Brien making his return. Martin, originally listed as an AHL All-Star to join the fun in Allentown, was called up to Colorado, your NHL affiliate, and then Jack Campbell would take over his role, and then maybe Martin comes right back down. So I think he just didn't want to play in the All-Star game and made Campbell want to play. But
I didn't want to go to Allentown.
But how big of an addition is that to have your rock back there? in terms of your goaltending, your overall defense, because just looking at his numbers, him and Jack Campbell, goals against average, pretty much neck and neck in the top 15 of the American Hockey League.
Yeah, Spencer's been great. And I was talking to him this morning. I said, it's kind of got to be amazing for you when you think about, it was 8 months ago. He was actually backing up Fort Wayne in their run to the conference finals in the ECHL. He wasn't even the starter down in the ECHL Kelly Cup playoffs last year, and now here he is. He's playing in the National Hockey League. He's an American Hockey League All-Star. It's really amazing how this game, kind of can shift because of an injury one way or another, and you're put into the spotlight. And he's just a guy who I think has taken advantage of an opportunity. He's really rolled with it this year, and he's been very good. And I think he was not the question mark at the beginning of the season. The question was how the Rampage were going to utilize him, especially in correlation with a guy like Jeremy Smith, who is a veteran goalie, is a very good American Hockey League goalie, and somebody who I think the organization kind of designated as the #1 starter down here to start the season. But Jeremy gets injured in October. He's missed 2 months of the season, came back last month, and Spencer's really taken the ball and run with it. And kudos to him. He's had a great year. We're happy we get to see him. It might be the last weekend he's here for the year because of Semyon Varlamov's injury. He's going to go back to Colorado after the NHL All-Star break. So I think Rampage fans are at least excited that they get the chance to see him one more time, at least this weekend.
And another big key cog for the Rampage success has been your forward, and also the guy that will go to the AHL All-Star game in rookie A.J. Greer. And Greer coming into tonight's contest, let's see, I jotted down his stats here, tied for 4th among rookies with 30 points this season. And he has a goal and an assist against Ontario in the head-to-head series so far. It seems like when you're looking to scoring, it starts with A.J. Greer.
Yeah, A.J. Greer, and actually along with 2 other guys who've been his line mates for a long time, Rocco Grimaldi and J.T. Comfort, the 3 of them were easily San Antonio's best line. Something like 50 points over 20 games that they've been paired together. But Eric Veilleux decided a couple of weekends ago that he really wanted to, get some other guys in the lineup going. So he took Rocco off that line, and he paired him with Felix Gerard and Gabriel Bork, and he's trying to balance out the scoring. But getting back to A.J. Greer, 19-year-old who was a second-round draft pick by Colorado, just, does a lot of the dirty things that a hockey player has to do to be successful, especially a young hockey player with size. You have to go to the front of the net. You have to get into those dirty areas. Guy who's not going to always score the pretty goal, but he's going to be there for the rebounds. And he's a great skater. He's gone up and played 5 games for the Avalanche this season. Bright future again as a 20-year-old. And he's looking forward to going to the All-Star game. I think that's the cool thing. When you're a young guy, you're playing your first year pro hockey, and you get a chance to be an All-Star. It doesn't matter what level you're at. I think that's pretty cool, and I think AJ's excited about going to the All-Star game.
And Greer will be joined by a lot of the Reign members, including head coach Mike Stuthers, who's out there now here for morning skate at AT&T Center. And for overall, he's also going to be joined by Vincent Laverty, Johnny Brodzinski, and then, of course, Jack Campbell taking Spencer Martin's spot on the All-Star roster. Danny, I see your question in terms of who's taking over for Michael Mersch on his line. In fact, Dan and I were just talking about that. And Sean Backman, a former Texas star who has seen a lot of the San Antonio Rampage over his career. Backman has been fitting in that groove with Teddy Purcell and TJ Hensick, so look for number 16 for Ontario to jump up there. And Dan, you can kind of talk about the history that Backman has had against this Rampage group. Just looking at his numbers, he's put up impressive points, handful of points, 2 goals, in fact, the last time we were in this building. So it seems like Backman is one of those guys that just kind of keeps pestering this Rampage group.
Yeah, he's really found a home in the Kings organization, playing in Manchester the year they won the Cup, and then, coming over with the team. Has that history against San Antonio, but when we saw him, I don't think he was ever envisioned as a guy who was going to be a top 6 player, let alone a top 3 player. And so, he's really been a rock for Ontario the last couple of years. I think it's interesting, he's playing his off wing now with the injury to Mersch, and you've got Teddy Purcell sliding in on the right side. But, that line doesn't seem to have really missed a beat as far as the chemistry and consistency goes. But he's certainly a guy that, as a sniper, Eric Veilleux will target. Johnny Brodzinski with his 14 goals. That's another guy that the Rampage will target on. Jack Campbell, for me, is always the wild card. I was going through Jack Campbell's numbers against the Rampage. He's another guy who's seen San Antonio a ton. His first 8 games against San Antonio, he was 7-1 in his career. He was outstanding. Had a goals against average below 1.5, couple shutouts. He was lights out. You look over his last 9 starts against San Antonio, he's only got 2 wins. and a goals against average of almost 5. And so whether it's a mental thing for Jack when he sees the bullhead, it's interesting. There's a couple of guys who I've seen over the years, Thomas McCullum, who you also had actually at the beginning of the season, never played well against the Rampage. Was 1-10-1 in his career against San Antonio. Great goaltender, former first-round draft pick. So it'll be interesting for a guy like Jack, who struggled against the Rampage recently, who struggled in the last meeting against San Antonio when the teams met in Ontario. He's, without question, the key to Ontario's success on the back end. So that's a big challenge for him tonight to come into this building and kind of get his record turned around against San Antonio.
Joey Z and Dan Weiss breaking things down for the Ontario Reign and San Antonio matchup here tonight. And Dan, I got to imagine that you're going to try and test Jack Campbell pretty early in terms of the San Antonio group, just because of how well he's been playing. Again, AHL All-Star, but he started the last 22 games in a row for Ontario, and now he's in the top 15 in AHL in terms of goals against average. Leads the league in wins now. So you want to talk about a Spencer Martin case who's kind of seized an opportunity. How about Jack Campbell with 19 wins and really leading this Reign group in a turnaround season? Now, I will say that he was, part of that goaltending carousel. You had Anders Limbach in the picture. You had Jonah Emu in the picture, Jack Campbell, Peter Budaj. So things are a little hectic at the end of October and beginning of November now, but it seems like, your big line involving AJ Greer and company, that's going to be a big key for them, is to get to Campbell pretty early.
Yeah, I would think so. And I think, the first 10 minutes of the game, I think for both teams, was so key. And you look at both teams' record when scoring the first goal. The Rampage have 14 wins. Ontario's got 15 wins when scoring the first goal. So both coaches know that getting that first goal, especially, in the last weekend before the All-Star break, everybody's thinking about the time off for a couple of days. And, you want to set the tone right early in the game. So I think that'll be something that both coaches focus on. It's funny, I was just talking with Eric about Jack Campbell. The amazing about how, and I've always marveled this about the LA Kings organization, but just how structured they play in all three zones, and the fact that if you lose an NHL All-Star like Jonathan Quick, you think, my goodness, our season is toast.
Yeah.
And so what Peter Budaj has done, going in and fill the void, has been nothing short of amazing from an LA standpoint. But at the same time, what Jack Campbell has done, coming in and filling the void in Peter Budaj's absence from an Ontario standpoint, has also been nothing short of amazing. And so I think a lot of credit goes to just how both coaches, Daryl Sutter and Mike Stothers, really emphasize discipline, really emphasize playing within the structure to put all the goalies in this organization in a position to be successful.
And of course, Peter Budaj coming off a shutout victory last night out in Carolina, his 5th of the year, 16th in his career, so certainly helping out the Kings. But you bring up a good point, because I want to talk about the Colorado Avalanche a little bit. Your big affiliate, you mentioned Spencer Martin, the goaltender there. Looks like he's going to head up after the NHL/AHL All-Star break here this weekend. But with things going not so great for Colorado right now, they're last in the wild card race in the National Hockey League. You mentioned a lot of guys going up and down. Do you feel like moving into the second half of the year, a lot of fans have noticed that there's a lot of Colorado Avalanche scouts patrolling the West Coast, especially at Staples Center and Citizens Business Bank Arena. In fact, I remember one time we had 4 guys from the Colorado organization just sitting around and floating around CBBA in Southern California. Do you expect any transactions to go up, whether it's a call-up or maybe people moving around and some moving pieces?
Well, what I think when you're having the year like Colorado is, something obviously has to be something has to be done, and I don't think a panic trade is anything that Joe Sakic, the general manager, is going to put himself in a position to do. But they've only won 13 games this year. It's not been a good year. They've got a bunch of guys on expiring contracts, and those are the types of guys that tend to get moved at the trade deadline. So I think the next month here is going to be interesting to watch what Colorado does. They've already traded Cody McLeod, who was their longest tenured player, to Nashville, and I can see a guy like Jerome McGinley moving. I can see a guy like John Mitchell moving. They've got Fedor Tutin, who's on an expiring deal. Of course, everybody wants to know what about Duchesne and Landeskog, are 2 big pieces who've been the center of trade rumors, and I know LA has kind of been potentially at maybe some of those centers of those rumors, and I think that's why the Colorado scouts have been at a lot of the Ontario games, because they want to see defensive prospects, and there's certainly an abundance of defensive prospects that are playing down in the American Hockey League that Colorado may feel can help them down the line to the NHL level. So I would expect to see transactions. It will certainly impact the Rampage, and just, I guess, the number of transactions is the only thing to be determined.
Now it looks like morning skate about to wrap up here at AT&T Center, and we'll kind of wrap up with this, Dan. I mean, for you, you know your team better than anyone in terms of the San Antonio Rampage. I mean, what do you expect from a San Antonio side to be your biggest key going into tonight's game?
I think for the Rampage, they've really just got to continue with what's gotten them to where they've been the last 3 games, and that's coming out and setting the tone in the first, like I said, 10, 15 minutes of the game. The first goal, again, being a big part of their success. They don't play well from behind. They only have 1 win this season when trailing after the first period, and they have no wins when trailing after the second period. So this is a team that needs to play with the lead to be successful. And against Ontario, again, going back to their structure and their discipline, that's a hard thing to do, to play with the lead against a team like Ontario. But if they can get that first goal, I think it enables them to play within their own structure, within their own discipline, and hopefully I think we'll see a good game. I think Ontario, the biggest difference for me between Ontario this year and Ontario last year is that you were lucky if you could get 1 or 2 goals against the Reign last year. This year it seems like you can get a few more against Ontario, but the games are still tight. They're still close. Of course, I think the lingering thing is there were 2 big hits that were thrown at Citizens Business Bank Arena the last time we were there. Andrew Crescenzi on AJ Greer. He bounced back up pretty quickly, and Kurt McDermott on Jim O'Brien, who knocked him out of the game. And I think the Rampage is certainly aware of how big and how physical Ontario is. I think they've got to match that physical play here throughout the night.
And to finish up on that note, too, 101 combined penalty minutes in that contest. 3 fights, and that was actually the last time we would see Reign defenseman Zach Trotman. So a little roster update there. Trotman did not make the trip, hasn't played a game since that early November contest against this Reign group. But Dan, thanks so much for joining us here on the kind of this impromptu game preview here at Morning Skate at AT&T Center. The Reign and San Antonio Rampage, 7:30 local time. That's in the Central Time Zone if you're out on the West Coast. Back home, it is a 5:30 puck drop. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you guys over at OntarioReign.com. There you can get the full written game preview, some stats, tonight's game notes, and more. We'll catch up with the Reign head coach a little bit later on here in the Morning Skate, try and get you the pregame quote of the day, and, of course, our conversation during tonight's broadcast. And, again, 5:30 puck drop Pacific time. Hope you can join us. It'll be a fun one here tonight at AT&T Center. It is the 3rd of 6 meetings between the Reign and Rampage this year. See you guys soon.